Rosie in the Rockies here on YouTube and also on Instagram. I'll link my Instagram in the description box below, and I'll also link below everyone and everything that I mentioned in this video. First, I hope that you're all well and safe, and that you're taking good care of yourselves and your loved ones. I also hope that I might be keeping you company in this video while you are stitching or doing some other kind of needlework or doing chores or just relaxing. We are doing okay. This month was really busy in terms of my job, so I've had less stitching time than usual and also less time to watch Flosstube videos. I'm very behind in watching Flosstube. Nonetheless, I have several things to share, so I'll start with a very brief update on Stitching from Stash 2025. Then I'll share my fully finished object, or FFO, and 6 whips. And then at the end of the video, I'll do a brief update on my stitching progress for the first quarter of the year. So January through March 2025. Just a few numbers related to my starts, finishes, and whips. Let's start with Stitching from Stash 2025. This hashtag and stitch along are really about enjoying what we have, whether it's a single whip from before 2025 or pulling a fabric or a pattern or some floss from Stash. It's not required to do a no-buy. It's not required to stitch everything from Stash all year long. It's really about taking moments to enjoy the crafting supplies and projects that we already have. So if you're interested, I do have a video about stitching from Stash in my 2025 stitching plans that I'll link below. There's also a hashtag on Instagram, and we welcome you to join us. In terms of my personal update, Stitching from Stash is working great for me. I haven't purchased anything for myself yet this year, although I did make some stitching purchases for a project that I'll be working on and sharing with you probably in the second half of the year. But I knew that I was going to be doing that, and my little pocket money for that project had already been set aside in 2024. I also would like to share some stitchers on Flosstube and Instagram who have joined in on the hashtags, so that if you don't already follow them, you can, because they're wonderful. First, we have Carolyn, or the Flosstube Stitcher, on YouTube and Instagram. Carolyn has some beautiful full coverage and also non-full coverage pieces. She stitches a lot of Christmas year-round, but also does other year-round sals, and she has beautifully finished projects, and she shares a little bit about her and her family's personal life, which I also enjoy. Also on YouTube and Instagram is Lady Marmalade and Stitches, or Sabrina. Sabrina's doing a full no-buy. She has very beautiful projects, and she recently finished and framed Mojo stitches on a low branch with a full color conversion, very vibrant colors. It's a lot of fun. And I also saw on Instagram she just started this Rosewood Manor pattern that I am working on. And then on Instagram we have Volcano Knots, or Cynthia, who stitches reproduction samplers. She's doing the 2025 Modern Folk Embroidery Sal. Beata Romana, who stitches so many beautiful things, but right now she's stitching Hands Across the Sea Martha Walmsley design that I'm also stitching. And we decided that we're stitching on it together on April 6th. So if you're also stitching Martha, please join us on 6th. We have Deborah, or Deborah Stitches, who's working on the Haid Jellyfish Year-Long Sow. Deborah stitches lots of different things. She has an Alforced embroidery project. Mirabilia, lots of full coverage. And then to me on Instagram is Mean Moose Mom Stitcher, who stitches lots of different things, but she recently finished a couple of bunnies on very large spools, and she's also working on a Star Wars piece. So if you don't already follow them, please go check them out. All right, let's get into the stitching. The first project I have to show you is a fully finished object. In my last Flosstube update at the end of February, I showed you that I had finished Mirabilia's Renaissance Mermaid, and I'll insert a little video clip of the finished project before I ironed it below. This is a gift for a friend who's turning 40 next week, and actually this weekend a group of us are going to a local resort town that has skiing and hot springs to celebrate her birthday. I wanted to make sure I framed this so that I could bring it with me on the trip. We're all driving and meeting up there, so I knew she'd be able to bring it back home. And here is a photo that looks like fully framed. I took several photos, but it was really hard to get a picture where the glass didn't reflect or glare. We had quite a bright house, lots of windows, and I tried really hard. I tried closing all the blinds and curtains. That wasn't working. I tried taking photos at night. There was still a glare, so this is the best that we could do. This frame is from Michael's. It was quite an expensive frame. I believe it was about $45 before coupon, but it was the only frame that I found that was halfway between a frame and a shadow box, that there was more than enough room for the two treasures in her purse, and it worked perfectly. So I'm very happy with how it turned out. I'm a little bit sad that I don't have a mermaid on the go right now, and this one's finished, but I am planning to start my unicorn Mirabilia chart Queen Mermaid in November, for November, and until then I will just enjoy my other Miras. If you like mermaids, I highly recommend this one. I think she has such a beautiful face. I'll insert a close-up photo of her face, and there are tons of beads, and I think the movement in this design is really beautiful. Highly recommend. Okay, now the whips. I will show these to you in the order that I worked on them. On the 1st of March, I worked on Manor at Quaker Hill by Brenda Gervais with Angie, or Angie Slowly Crafts, here on Flosstube and Instagram. I think Angie dubbed these projects our Red House samplers, and I think she did start a hashtag that we've been using, because both projects have a red house. So if you have a project that has a red house and you'd like to join us, please either message me below or message us on Instagram. We'll add you to our little group chat. And I'm working on this project using all the called for fabric and floss. Here is a photo of what it looked like end of February. And this is what it looks like now after 2 days of working on it. So I was able to pull this border down, get the flower and the border in, and then stitch this floral motif inside the cornucopia. I am the obsessed with this project. I don't want to put it down. It's definitely one of my favorites right now. And I have half a mind to stitch monogamously on it. And I think I would if it didn't make me miss my other projects. So Angie and I did decide we're going to keep working on them every month, the first Saturday of the month. So if you have a sampler with the red house and you'd like to join us, please let us know here in the comments below or by messaging us on Instagram, and we'll add you to group chat. I also wanted to get your advice. So the pattern does call for 4 eyelets stitched right here inside the cornucopia with the same thread as the cornucopia itself. I did stitch them. I think they look kind of wonky. I don't know. So should I pull them out and just do crosses, or leave them be, or put them in a different color? Very open to suggestions. I did notice that several people on Instagram posted close-ups of this motif, and they just did regular crosses. They did not do the eyelets. So not sure about that one. Then I pulled out Dimensions Butterfly Forest. This project is actually a year old as of April 1st. Here's a photo of what it looked like at the end of February. And here is what it looks like now after 4 days of stitching on it in March. So I got some more progress under this branch and then here in the tree line, and then I started this butterfly and then got up into the top left corner. I should have been back stitching these flowers and this butterfly and this flower here, but something was compelling me to make my way over to the corner so I could see how large this is going to be and have kind of a frame to work downward from. So please hold me to it when you see this project at the end of April. I have to have the back stitch in these flowers and this butterfly done. And if I don't know, I'm a bad girl. I am working on this one with Sofia from Sofia Stitching Love here on Flosstube and on Instagram. We pull this one out every Tuesday, and I put that in quotes because the past month, I think we both ended up stitching on it either on Wednesday or Thursday. We missed our Tuesday, but we are trying to stick to Tuesdays. And I'm really glad that I am working on it monthly, and I think working on it once a week instead of several days in a row actually helps keep my irritation with the crunchy Ada at bay. So I think this one should be a finish in the next several months, definitely well before the end of the year. And I've got 2 butterflies left up top and some background and then the back stitch. And then the design does have, I can't remember if it's couching or cording, but this gold line with a piece of gold thread, which I'll do at the end. So that is Butterfly Forest. My next whip is Mirabilia's Botanical Garden. I started this one on November 8th, 2024, and I will never forget that day because it's the day we closed on our dream house that we moved into last November and that we're living in now. It was also the first major snow day up here in the mountains, so we closed on the house but couldn't get the keys. The kids had a snow day from school. We were frantically packing because our movers were scheduled for the following week. And I had a house full of things to pack, but what did I decide to do? Start a Mira. So here is a photo of what she looked like at the end of November after a handful of stitching on her. And here is what she looks like now. So this month, when I pulled her back out, I stitched the left entire side of her flower crown, and her face will go in here. I'm using all the called for threads and Krynic, and I will be using the called for beads. I did switch out the fabric. It calls for a pink fabric, and instead I chose Seraphim Fabrics 32 count Capri. I do think she's beautiful on the pinks and creams that most people stitch her on, but I wanted something a bit more tropical, a bit more like a garden. And I'm really, really pleased with the fabric that I selected. There are a few places where one of the thread colors, this very light pastel teal, blends in with the fabric, and a few places where these lilac color hangings, I don't know what to call them, blend in a little bit with portions of the fabric, but I prefer that look. I like when it looks like the fairy or the Mira is kind of emerging out of the background, and it's maybe hard to tell where the fabric ends and the pattern begins. That's my preference. So I am really happy with how she's turning out. And now that Renaissance Mermaid is finished, this Mira will be my focus Mira, and she'll get a handful of days each month. Okay, then my other focus piece is Twisted Band Sampler by Northern Expressions Needlework. Here's a photo of the model stitch. I purchased the PDF online, so I don't have a hard copy photo of the model. And then here's a photo of the color conversion I made that's inspired by the Colorado Alpine Lakes close to where we live. And I started this design in October 2024 because I want to practice doing specialty stitches with lots of repetition. The whole purpose of this was to learn specialty stitches before trying my hand at a chatelaine, and I think it is serving its purpose. So the last time you saw it, I had finished band 8, and here's a photo of what it looked like at the end of February with 8 bands. And this is what it looks like now. So I stitched all of band 9. Now band 9 is the exact center of the design, so I'm officially halfway done. Band 9 is also where the lightest color green and the lightest color blue in my color conversion meet. So now as I continue with band 10 onward, I'll be stitching from lightest blue to darkest blue, kind of mirror the darkest green to lightest green that I stitched in the top half. And I'm glad about that. However, I'm not sure if it's because I have other projects that are my favorites right now, or if it was a hard work month in general, so it took more enjoyment out of my stitching than usual to feel relaxed, to feel calm. Or if maybe now that I'm at the halfway point with this project, I'm realizing how much more I have to go and how I've been working on it so diligently as a focus piece in 2025, but I'm only at the halfway point. Maybe it's a combination of these things. I do feel like I'm starting to hit a wall a little bit with this piece, and I'm of the mind that stitching is supposed to be 100% enjoyable. So if something is only bringing me 70 or 80% joy, I want to put it away. And I had initially thought start of this year that I would be working on this piece 7 days every single month, the same way that Karen, the recovering monogamous stitcher, stitches on her oldest whip for 7 days each month. Maybe I'm going to put a pause on that, put a pin in it for a little bit, and take a break. Because this month I did not have as much fun stitching on it than in prior months. And this band are cross stitches. They're not difficult to stitch, but for whatever reason, I was feeling it a little less than I feel my other designs. So we'll see if I pull it out in April or not. I'm going to let the direction that the wind is blowing dictate whether I pull it out or not. And I should also mention I'm stitching it on a 28 count Seraphim fabric in Stonewashed, which I think is a lovely fabric and looks quite a bit like the kind of terrain you see, blue sky and brown mountains and then green grasses. So yeah, we'll see if I pull this one out again. In contrast, the next whip is my favorite of all time dream stitching project. This is Hands Across the Seas, Martha Walmsley. Here is a photo of where she was last month. And here she is now. So this month I stitched 4 roses, flowers, and this is the very bottom of the pattern, and so it gives you a sense of the size. Clearly I mismeasured because it's set off to the left and top a little bit, but that's okay. I'm going to frame it pretty tight when she's done. I had the best time stitching the border. My partner jokes that Martha is my therapist, and it's true. I feel so much better after stitching on her each time I stitch on her. And I think this is another project that I probably would stitch monogamously, except that with 40 count, I need a magnifier and my eyes get tired easily and stare at a computer screen all day for work. So I don't want to make mistakes on her, so I kind of reserve her for weekends where I have more bandwidth and less likely to make mistakes. Here is a close-up of her, just so you get a sense of how pretty and delicate she is, and I bet she's even more delicate on 56 count. And here are the parts of the order that I got to this month. I'm stitching her on 40 count Tabbycat linen in Lally Brock, I think that's how you say it. That came with the kit from Hobby House Needlework. This is a limited edition for Hobby House, and last I checked, they still have pattern and there are a couple of notions that you can purchase with it, and they still have the fabric, and I checked yesterday. So Beata Romana on Instagram and I are going to stitch on her the first Sunday in April, and I invite anyone who's stitching Martha to join us. My plan with Martha overall is that I'm not going to stitch the verse, and I'm not really concerned with the space that will be left here. I think that will look fine, but here where there's a big chunk of verse and the branch kind of has a stump, I'm going to have to do something different here. So I've decided that I'm going to stitch the entire border and also stitch this motif before I start trying to rechart potentially where this motif goes and then where the bird sits on the branch and maybe moving this flower. That way I'll have the entire frame of the piece done and I'll know how far I can go left or right, closer or further away from this rose motif. And hopefully I'll be able to create something that's centered and doesn't look strange, that doesn't look off. I still want it to look like it is centered, that the composition looks right, even though I'll be making some changes. I love this project. Can't get enough of it. Okay. And then the last piece I worked on is Rosewood Manor's. Now, I have been saying Cittlewick Green. I just watched a video by Thread Gremlins where Aimee said very firmly that it is Cittlewick Green, but she didn't say how she knew that. I commented on their video, and I think it's Caroline, Sassy Caroline, who said that she trusts Aimee, and that's really nice. But if anyone knows whether it's a hard K sound for Cittlewick or whether it's more of an S soft sound for Cittlewick, please let me know. I tried Googling. I messaged who I thought was Karen Kluba of Rosewood Manor on Instagram. No response, because maybe it was not the right person. I would really like to know. So the last time you had seen it, I had finished the top row of the alphabet. And this time, I started the second row of the alphabet. So I was able to stitch all of these letters O through U and then get started on this little border that kind of underlines the second row of alphabet. I am obsessed with this design. It's definitely in my top 3 right now, alongside Rosewood, alongside Martha and Manor at Quaker Hill. Here is a close-up. And the camera's not doing it justice. These colors are just beautiful. I'm using all the called for colors, but I did switch out the fabric for a piece of 40 count Mocha by Weeks Dye Works. My favorite colors in the whole design I pulled out are Bullfrog and Grasshopper by Weeks. Yes, Weeks fabrics do shred, but I love the colors, and I'm not sure if you'll be able to tell, but the variegation in the 2 greens in these little borders is really special. Very much enjoying it. Really looking forward to picking this piece up again. Okay, finally, I'm going to put some numbers on the screen and share a little recap of what I've accomplished for the first quarter of 2025. And I have my notes here if you hear paper rustling. I'm not going to show my starts, finishes, and whips. You can look at my other videos for details, and I'll save them for an end of year whip parade. I also don't have a stitch count because I'm a paper pattern stitcher, so I have no idea how many stitches I do in a month. I'm just going to share the numbers. So I started 2025 with 8 whips, all of which were started in 2024, and with an intention to finish all 8 of those whips before the end of 2025. Of those 8 whips, I finished 2. That's great. And then in January and February, collectively, I started 3 projects, 2 in January, 1 in February. And then I finished 1 of those projects, which was my Little Blessings sampler. So my net whip number right now is still at 8, with 3 total finishes for the year so far, which I feel very good about. I love watching people who have, 100, 150 whips, and I get overwhelmed if I have more than about 8 to 10 whips. So I like where I'm at. Looking forward to the next quarter, April through June, my plan for April is to keep stitching on my whips, including pulling out the 2 whips from 2024 that I have not touched this year yet. In May, I'll start a Mirabilia or 2 for May. And then in June, my oldest son is graduating middle school. So to commemorate that, he's going to select a piece for me to start for my sampler wall. But because I haven't yet selected what I'll be starting in May, and son hasn't selected what I'll start in June, I'll just share those patterns in whatever Flosstube update where I've started them. Overall, somebody who's a combination process progress stitcher, I'm very pleased with what I've accomplished so far in 2025, and also really pleased about how stitching continues to be such a calming hobby for me. It feels like a creative outlet, brings me joy. So that's all I have to share with you today. I hope that you're all safe and well in April, and that stitching brings you your creative outlet, peace and joy and calm, and all the good things. Happy